Hello, everybody, and welcome back to what I think is our final session of day one of Build Stuff 2021, live in person and online. It's a hybrid event experience. A big hello to all of you watching out there in the Kinoplex in Vilnius. A big hello to all of you tuning in and watching us online from all over the world. It is my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker. She's known as the Queen of Patterns, I believe. Is that right, Linda?
Of course. No, it was the princess.
Oh, the princess of patterns.
not the queen. No, not the queen.
Consultant, speaker, author, somebody who has been hugely influential in the movement of applying design patterns in software and kind of getting corporations to start taking those seriously as an engineering strategy. She's joined us today to talk about trees, agility, and me. Please give a big, warm Build Stuff welcome, Linda Rising.
Oh, thank you, Dylan. And I think to begin with appreciation, thanks to all of you, whether you're actually in a room together, isn't that wonderful? Or whether you're online, thank you for giving me your time and believing I might have something interesting to say. I appreciate that. This is a talk about trees. And if you think it's interesting and maybe have some information you'd like to share with any of your colleagues or your family, you're welcome to use the information on this very first slide, which has all my contact information, including my email. So just write and say, I'd like to have your PowerPoint slides. So I'm going to translate them to another language or get rid of that background. I'm going to do all kinds of things. There's no copyright. They are yours. We can also connect on LinkedIn or I'm on Twitter. So let's stay in touch. Lots of people ask me, Linda, how is it that you keep going? I mean, we know next year it's going to be a significant birthday for me. I'm going to be 80 years old. Oh, how did that happen? One day at a time, I think. So I don't know. I don't have any secrets to share. I have a few tips, a few things I think I've learned along the way. And for me, the most important thing, not only for longevity, but for good health, for coming up with good ideas, for being innovative, for learning, the best thing for your body, and since your brain is part of your body, the absolute best thing you can do is exercise. And I have done that all my life. So I'm a believer. And now there's evidence, there's scientific evidence of the benefits, not only for staying in shape and feeling better, but for thinking better. And before the pandemic, exercise to me meant going to the gym. I would work out for an hour. I had belonged to 2 different gyms because they have different equipment that I like. And I look forward to it. It was not a drudgery. However, when the pandemic hit, the gyms closed down. Now, it's impossible to go in and use my favorite equipment. It's impossible, in fact, to go inside and exercise because other people who are exercising, well, there was a risk there. So what to do? Well, fortunately, my husband and I moved to a retirement community 10 years ago when he decided to retire. And one of the reasons we decided to move here was walking trails, but we had never been on the walking trails. So let's try it out. Let's go for a walk. I thought this was a good substitute. I thought walking is okay. I like walking. In fact, research shows, and I have been espousing for years, the benefits of walking, not only to stay in shape and enjoy the outside, but because you come up with good ideas. So walking, definitely a positive So my husband and I started walking about 5 miles every day. It's wonderful. Not only do you get outside and get a little exercise, but you see animals. Look at these animals. We were even walking when it was winter, snow on the ground and ice. We walked every day. And we saw deer. We have lots of deer in our forest. We have rabbits. And this is, I'm not sure if you can see her. It's a vixen. It's a female fox. She actually lives in our backyard. And she has 4 babies now. And every now and then she will come out and she will eat tasty rats, mice, voles. She feels right at home here. So we have lots of foxes. This is an owl, a nice Mr. Hawk. And of course, I began to look at and seriously consider what it is about trees. I didn't know much about trees. I began to do some research about trees. I began to learn something about these magnificent plants that make up the forest where I was doing my walk every day, and realized suddenly in the middle of all this research how agile, how much we can learn about trees. So underneath all healthy plants, that includes trees, there's a collection of other kinds of living things. These are not plants or animals. They are their own, well, let's call them category. Fungi, a fungus. And all healthy plants have, these are not the roots of the plants. The roots of the plants are connected to these fungi. And those connections enable all the plants in the forest, including the trees, to be connected to one another. It's done through the fungi. And the name of this, well, it's a network, is called mycorrhizal. So the mycorrhizal fungi connect all the plants in the forest. That was an astounding bit of information for me, who saw trees as standalone, single entities. Some of the trees are pretty big. I saw them as independent. I saw them as considering their own welfare first. I didn't realize that underground, underneath, where we can't see it, all the connections that keep all of these plants alive are growing. Reminded me of a lot of agile teams. The connections, the things that make it really work, are things that you often can't see, that you're not aware of, that allow us to be connected to one another. There was a famous article. I went on the internet to dig it up. It was published in a very prestigious journal called Nature. You can find it. If not, I'll be happy to send it to you. It was published in 1997. And it was based on the research of an amazing young forestry student who discovered this underground network. It, at the time, was startling information. So here I am 20 years later discovering this information. I feel a little out of date, but I think maybe most people don't normally read Nature, aren't aware of the breakthrough discovery that this amazing researcher made. She said, if you look underground in a forest, you can see all the connections among the plants. Now, the publisher of Nature said, this is like the internet. So they called it the wood Wide Web. I encourage you to read it. It was groundbreaking at the time. Now we have a lot more information, and there is a brand new book out, which I encourage you to read, written by this very same researcher. This book is called Finding the Mother Tree, and the researcher who wrote the article that was published in 1997, who also wrote this book, is the woman who has made these groundbreaking discoveries about trees and how agile they are. Her name is Suzanne Simard. I encourage you to get the book and read it or listen to it if you're an audiobook fan. It has a collection of amazing stories. It's very easy to read and to understand how we don't understand what goes on with trees. We know that all the trees are connected. All the mycorrhizal fungi enable trees and other plants in the forest to communicate. They really do send messages back and forth. They really do send messages that say something vital. These are messages about survival. They're messages about helping one another. They're messages about evolution. They're messages about learning and how agile these trees are. So trees and plants, we know, use sunlight and air, removing carbon dioxide. I'm sorry if this is too technical. I started life as a chemist, so this was really exciting for me. Here comes carbon dioxide, removing from the air. The trees and other plants then use the carbon to create, we'll call them a sugar. And that's what they use to build the infrastructure for their bark, leaves, stems. And in this time, when we are worried about climate change, we know that what plants and trees do becomes increasingly important. As we see carbon dioxide building up in the air, trees and plants are helping us by pulling out carbon dioxide, using the carbon, and releasing the oxygen. The problem is that's not enough. All the trees and plants in the forest and elsewhere need something else. They need minerals. Where can they get the minerals? Well, the soil. Good soil has lots of minerals. For instance, here's an example. I don't think of nitrogen as a mineral, but it falls into this category. Nitrogen is in the soil, and the tree needs that. So the tree cooperates with the mycorrhizal fungi, saying, you know, I have a lot of sugar here that I just made, and I really need some minerals. Could we do a deal? I'll give you some sugar, and you give me some nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium or magnesium. And the mycorrhizal fungi said, that's great, because we don't have any ability to do photosynthesis. We are underground, and we need that sugar. So they trade. I will send you minerals, you give me sugar. And it's not as though this is a simple transaction. The communication here is very complex. It's based on current environmental conditions. Do you have a lot of sugar? I'll take it. If you don't have so much, all right, I'll get by without it. How many minerals do you need? So there's an exchange, a trade based on real communication. This is not just, oh, it goes one way or it goes another way. It's based on information, on data. Trees will also send other kinds of messages through the air, warning other plants. This is an example of a giraffe that loves acacia trees And when a given acacia tree receives a bite from a giraffe, it sends out a warning signal through the air that tells other acacia trees, watch out, there's a giraffe in the neighborhood. And they then release bitter compounds that make the acacia leaves less tasty, so the giraffe will go elsewhere. The trees also know when there's global warming, when there's a problem with abundance of carbon dioxide, they sense that things are not going well. Some trees don't do well when the temperatures go too high. So they actually send out warnings to other plants in the area, telling them things are not going well. What can we do about it? They can actually evolve, change their DNA. Now they will die, but they do something that ensures that those who follow them will be better able to survive. Oh, I wonder if we have any kind of mechanism like that. Help each other, but they help us. And I'm not sure we know that. I'm not sure we take advantage of that. I'm not sure we really use all the resources that trees give us. It was a study done of hospital patients who had had a particular kind of surgery. They randomly assigned the patients to one of two rooms. So this was a randomized controlled experiment. Half the patients were put in a room where a window allowed them to see trees. And the other group was put in a hospital room where all they could see was a brick wall. Would you think it would make a difference? It did significantly. Those tree patients were happier, healthier. They didn't require as much medication, either for pain or anxiety. They didn't have as many side effects from the surgery: headache, nausea, anxiety. They stayed in the hospital for fewer days. When I read that study, I couldn't help but think about all the people I see every day who are sitting in a little box on a Zoom meeting, and instead of spending time outside with trees, they spend their time staring at a screen. That's our equivalent of a brick wall. And they notice increased anxiety, increased depression, increased amount of headaches, other physical ailments. And they think it has something to do with the pandemic or the uncertainty of life right now, when maybe we could do a lot toward improving our lot if we would just let the trees help us. This was a long-term study of low-income housing in Chicago. These buildings were created at a time where, well, it was mostly about being cost effective. Let's get people into what they thought was good housing, and we won't worry about amenities like trees. Now, they did all have trees, at least a few trees in the beginning, but over time, like the building on the left, well, it was too much to maintain the green spaces, so they paved it over, and now there are no trees at all. Others maintain those green spaces pretty well, and so now it's not that there are an enormous number of trees, but there are a few trees still remaining, And so researchers at the University of Illinois said, this is a natural field experiment. Let's see if we can measure any difference between those people who are randomly assigned to live in an environment without trees or those randomly assigned to live in an environment with trees. Would there be a difference? And the answer is, of course, significant. Not only were they able to measure attitudes, feelings that people had about their neighbors, whether they trusted them, whether they would let them watch their children while they had to run an errand, but they also looked at police records and they found significantly lower crime rates in those buildings that had trees. In other words, a whole host of differences that had to do with whether people were more humane, whether they were happier, whether they were healthier. In the same basic building, it's just one group had a few trees, a little green space, and the other did not. So the psychologists have a name for this. It's called attention restoration theory. We do better when we are at least allowed a little bit of exposure to nature. When we don't have it, it's actually fatiguing to our brains. It's hard for us to think. And when it's hard for us to think, we don't make good decisions. We don't come up with creative ideas. And if we're in a really bad environment, we're much more likely to be aggressive, unhappy, and in some cases commit crimes. Nature has a restorative effect on us. So I wonder how you've been living for the past year and a half. Have you been living in an environment where the trees are gone and everything is paved over? Or have you been able to get outside at least a little bit? Have you been talking to the trees? Have you been allowing them to make your life better? Studies show all the benefits of green space. Creativity increase up to 15%. You do better at all mental tasks, paying attention. It's physically good for you. It reduces stress, heart rate, blood pressure. Bringing people together, yes, it's a good thing, but bringing people together with trees has enormous benefit. This is a statement from the researcher at the University of Illinois. When she began the experiment, she didn't expect to find anything significant. She said, before we started, I would have said, well, trees are nice. Of course, who doesn't like trees? But we face really big problems. The pandemic is on. People are dying. We have significant issues. I'm not sure that being concerned about trees, investing in green spaces, I don't know whether it's really worth it or not. But now that we've done the research, I'm convinced trees are important. They're an essential part of, and she calls it, a humane. Trees make us better humans. If we don't have green space, then we're different. We are changed, and not in a good way. Okay, suppose you don't have a forest and a walking trail and you live in a city and, well, you might have a little park and it has a few trees. Is there anything that we can say that's beneficial about that? It's certainly not a very big green space, and this, unfortunately, is where most of us are. The benefits are still significant. All you have to do is show up at your local park even once a week. And now there are significant reductions in anxiety and depression. It lowers blood pressure and heart rate, less stress. And children, those of us who are carers of children or grandchildren stuck inside, the benefits for children, both mentally and physically, just having a chance to be in a green space, even once a week, the benefits are huge. Or just get out every now and then for an hour. Measurable increase in cognitive ability, even if the weather is bad, even when it's horribly cold, we do better if we have a chance to go outside. Compared to those people who just get outside and don't see anything green, living in a city where all you see is concrete, no benefits. It's not about being outside. It's about being outside with our good friends, the trees. We know that tech giants spent time with the trees. I often quote Steve Jobs, who used to say when he was working on an idea, he would come into someone's office and say, let's go for a walk. And he meant walking up and down the streets of Palo Alto, which are covered with oak and ash and magnolia trees, working on an idea. He knew that it would be better outside. He knew it would be better with the trees. He knew it would be better walking. Jeff Bezos, before he decided to even begin his online bookstore, recorded spending hours walking around Central Park in New York City, debating with himself and with colleagues, should I do this or not? When he was the LinkedIn CEO, Jeff Weiner started lots of what he called walking meetings, 2 or 3 people who would go outside and walk among the trees and have discussions and talk to one another. So this list just has 3 people on it, but I could add 300. Intuitively, or because they looked at the evidence, these people who made a difference all spent time with trees. This is a quote from something I recommend. I don't know if you'll have time to read it or not. It's called Your Brain on Nature. Evidence shows that we get a natural hit. You can measure the opioid receptors that light up when we are outside in nature. It's kind of like natural drugs without the side effects, all the benefits, all the joy, all the pluses with no downsides, no addiction. Well, I don't know. After a year and a half, maybe I am addicted to walking outside. If I can't do it for some reason, too many meetings or too much going on, I miss it. We know that in Western science, and that's what we all subscribe to, is the emphasis on the individual. When we talk about evolution, we talk about the survival of the fittest, and we mean by that individual fitness. And we tend to ignore systems. We know that organizations and forests are complex adaptive systems. And science doesn't do a very good job of looking at the problems in systems. What the forests are showing us is that, yes, individuals are important. Of course, we care about individual trees or individual people, but that part of their job in survival is also to ensure the survival of the system, and that they spend considerable energy investing in the survival of the system. And that in turn benefits us. When we live in a healthy system, we as individuals are more likely to survive. It's a win-win situation, but it's been ignored by most scientific studies. They haven't gone abstract enough to look at the benefits to the individual of a healthy system. And of course, that is our biggest problem right now. Healthy systems. Science instead has given us technology, and we now rely on it. We think this is where the answer is. We think that by communicating with each other electronically, which is what we're doing now, or staying on our phones, we haven't gotten the benefits that we would have expected from technology. Technology, in fact, has maybe led us down the garden path of a different kind of addiction, a different kind of stress, a different kind of anxiety, a different kind of being very unhealthy. Most of us spend too much time with technology, too much time with devices. That's where we go for relief. When we don't feel good, what's the first thing we do? We turn to a device of some kind. We spend hours scrolling for no good reason. American and Canadian consumers buy more than 12 tons of medicine for depression, 7 tons of sleeping pills. And that's just American and Canadian. So I have no idea if we throw in the rest of the world, but it's pretty bad. Well, a study was done in London where most people use the pharmacy in their neighborhood, and they could measure, well, how many people live in this neighborhood? How much is there in the way of green space? What kinds of prescriptions do people get in their pharmacy? And they could tell significant differences between pharmacies serving neighborhoods with green space compared to pharmacies serving neighborhoods without, and see the difference in medicines for depression and anxiety. The less green space, the greater the increase in medication. And that's not just London. We don't want to pick on London. That's representative of all of us. We know that it's connected. We're connected. Healthy systems, healthy individuals. The system in the forest, the system of organizations in which we live, is all connected. And when one of us is healthy, it helps the other one be healthy. So this is not just about a few connections. Suzanne Simard measured in a forest in British Columbia which trees are connected to which other trees. And it turns out that almost all trees have connections to others, but some, and those are the large black or dark circles here, those trees are connected to almost all the other trees. Those she calls mother trees. Remember, the name of the book was Finding the Mother Tree? The old trees, the oldest mother or father trees, they're connected to more other plants in the forest. Now, if it's an oak tree, they seem to recognize other oak trees preferentially. It's a survival thing, an evolutionary thing, but they also support birch, fir, other plants in the forest. And when they die, they make sure that they send signals to all of the other plants they're connected to saying, here, I don't need this anymore. You can have all the sugar I have produced I want to help you. So she makes a case for keeping these old trees around as long as possible because they seem to support or nurture or teach the younger plants. This is the oldest tree on earth. It's called Methuselah. It's in California. It's 5,000 years old. Can you imagine what it has seen? And if it can learn what it has learned, it's a good thing we have it. We need these old trees. Biologists say trees are social. They can learn. They have memories. They take care of others who are sick. They know which plants are sick, and they send extra support. They keep each other alive by communicating through that network. Trees are really agile. Well, this for me, remember, this is a talk about trees and agility and me. So what I learned over the past year and a half is the benefit of walking. I've always been a fan. I know the research, I talk about it, but I've thought, well, walking, that's for people who can't really go work out on the machines or lift the weights. Yeah, walking is okay, but I sort of relegated it as second class citizen among exercise. And I am, for my age, very healthy. The only problem I had at the beginning of the pandemic was something called osteoporosis. It's a disease that causes your bones to deteriorate. It happens a lot in old people. And after a while, you're forced to take medication. And so I was taking medication and doing everything I could, watching my diet, lifting weights, doing weight-bearing exercise. I thought, I'm doing everything I can. And then I started walking. And when I went in for my checkup after a year, my physician said, Linda, your bone density is increasing. Now we know the medication keeps your bones from deteriorating, but it never, ever makes them better. What are you doing? What has changed? I said, I don't know. I can't think of any. Oh, wait. I'm not going to the gym anymore. I'm walking. Do you suppose would that make a difference? She said, well, I'm not sure, but keep it up. And I'm taking you off this medication. I think it was the trees. Actually, it could have been a combination of things. I don't know. This is a puzzle for me. And I will see if it continues. Will I continue at my age? Will I improve? You never hear about improvement of anything at my age. So this is an exciting result. And when I learned about mother trees, I thought, yes, that's me. I'm a mother tree. That's my job. That's my job to send what I can, especially to the young trees, the young people, help you, make you better. I already do that, and I'm going to keep on doing that. And what happens when I can't? What happens when I can't help anymore? So I also found an answer for that over the last year and a half. And I visited a wonderful place run by the Nature Conservancy, where when you pass away, you can become a tree. It's called green burial. It has no coffins, no anything. And so now I talk about this to a lot of people. It's called larkspur conservation. Someday, I will be a tree. So what can you do? Please Go outside. Every chance you get, go outside. It doesn't take long. Research shows just 10 minutes, 15 minutes, walk around, look at the trees, maybe even do what Steve Jobs did, was have a walking meeting. If you are back together, that solves the problem, doesn't it? We know that we have less transmission of the virus when we're outside. So there would be a huge health benefit there. Not only would you not have to worry about being close or in the same room with other people, but you would be walking. And the evidence is clear. We are so much better when we are walking. Okay, if you can't go outside, then have some pictures of trees, videos of trees, or real plants. Or just stand in front of a window like those patients who'd had surgery. Stand in front of a window, walk past a window, look out a window. If there's a chance that you can see, even for a brief moment, something green. You need to see green every day. This is called Orca. It's an interesting project in Iceland. It's one of many, a technological solution for climate change. The idea, of course, is that it's going to extract carbon dioxide from the air. The problem is it's very expensive, over $10 million invested so far. Critics say, yes, it does remove carbon dioxide from the air, but not very much. We're not sure if we did a real serious cost-benefit analysis that this technical solution would pay for itself. And when I read about it, I thought, don't we already have a solution for this problem? Don't we already have not technical, but natural things that remove carbon dioxide from the air? I think we do. They're called trees. We know that systems are built on relationships. We need to pay attention to those connections. I didn't even know they existed for the trees. Sometimes in agile environments, we pay attention to individuals or practices, and we don't think about how it all fits together. We don't think about it as a system. We don't think that a healthy system has an impact on individuals that have an impact on the system. We are all connected. Maybe we need to shift our focus and be more aware of the benefits of a healthy system. Maybe that's the key to being agile. Maybe it's not a list of things. Maybe it's we sometimes call that culture. Maybe it's the environment. If you want to learn more about what Suzanne Simard is doing, her project shows we need the trees need us. We need the trees need us. We need the trees back and forth. It's an interdependent, complex, adaptive system. So much bigger than agile. This is the whole community, all of us. We're all connected. We all need each other. I need you to be healthy. That will help me be healthy. This idea of how we are so connected to one another, unbelievably powerful, opens up a whole host of solutions. So let me close with appreciation again. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. And I'm going to stop sharing this, and maybe we can have some questions. There.
Hey, Linda, that was fantastic. Thank you so much.
My
Reminds
pleasure.
me of a quote I saw on a t-shirt once, which said, if trees had Wi-Fi, we'd nurture them and never cut another one down again. What a shame they
Yes.
only produce the oxygen we need to live. Or
Oh,
some sentiment like that. So I'm just going to refresh my stream window here. Has crashed. I don't think we have any questions. I think you've achieved a complete enlightenment. Yeah, no, there we go. So thank you so much for joining us. And that wraps it up for day one, folks. We are back tomorrow.